Hi everyone, my name is Jasmine and you are watching Faithfully Uncool. Welcome to my little space on the internet where I talk about faith and life. Thanks for stopping by. Hope you stick around. There have been a lot of things in my mind lately. Clearly a lot is going on in the world right now, and it's been really hard for me to think about what I want to put out during this weird time of quarantine. I know some people have lost their jobs, are not working. Some people are working from home. Kids left school a lot earlier than expected. Some might not even return to school the way that they expect to, might still be online in the fall. Whatever your situation, just know that I'm praying for you. I hope that your needs are being met and that the world for you gets back to the way it needs to be. Obviously, there's the Black Lives Matter movement going on as well. Even though it is not new, as a dark-skinned Black woman in the States, what is coming out right now about police brutality, these are things that I've thought about frequently when my Black brothers and father leave the house. They are not things that I never knew or that are coming to light for me, but for many people I think are being woken up. But as someone who chanted the names of Eric Garner and Mike Brown years ago, it's also really disheartening to feel like we're back at the same place. It's just, there's something really painful about that for me. So it's been hard to kind of find the words during this time. But of course, whether you're struggling to find the words or not, it doesn't mean that you can't be an ally. It doesn't mean that you cannot educate yourself, whether you have personal anecdotes or not. It doesn't mean that you can't call governors and sign petitions and donate to places that are fighting with the Black Lives Matter movement to see change in their states and in our country. So please don't think that not being sure is an excuse to not do anything. I am going to put some helpful links in the description, so however you can help financially or not, I just encourage everyone watching to do so. But this video is really inspired by another YouTuber, actually a tech YouTuber called Marques Brownlee, who did a video titled Reflecting on the Color of My Skin, and it got me thinking a lot about my own experience. With this channel focusing on a lot of faith-based stuff, I don't always talk about race, but my race is definitely a part of my life. It's always been a part of my life. And I think now, aside from police brutality, we're actually seeing a lot of people talk about even these smaller problems, I guess, in terms of racism, racist tendencies, the microaggressions, feeling like, you know, your natural hair is unprofessional, which I've definitely felt that way sometimes. The jokes that people say that are completely not okay, you know, going to school and African American history being something you have to major in before you know about everything going on within the civil rights movement and things that are not just Malcolm X and Martin Luther King, because in third grade and fourth grade and higher, it's going to be really watered down for you, or you're going to hear about European history and that's it. There was like actually this hierarchy, I guess, of racism, or these levels of racism kind of pyramid infographic that had been going around Instagram, and it's really informational, and it's something that when I read I was like, yep, definitely understand that. But Marques Brownlee's video did get me thinking about my own experiences as a Black woman in the United States, and also, oddly enough, as a Black Christian woman. And so if that interests you, I just encourage you to stick around, and I hope that it helps you out or gives you some insight. Obviously, I'm not talking for every Black woman, every Christian, every Black Christian, every woman, whatever. That's a very POC, Black person, minority thing to have to do, is to tell people that you are not speaking for your entire race. This is just my own general thoughts. You don't have to agree, because it's literally not gospel, no pun intended. It's just my own point of view. So hope that it helps you, hope that it's interesting at least, and here we go. So these are not being stated in any particular order. I wrote them down randomly, so I am talking about them randomly. It's not a hierarchy of what's most important or not. But number one I wrote down would be upholding a doctrine of purity with a double-edged sword of history that tells you that Black women were seen as less pure and savages by white slave owners with no rights to their body. So clearly starting with the lightest thought of the bunch. But this is something that's actually been on my mind. I've written a blog post about it last year. I've talked about purity on this channel before, and how to be pure even outside of this idea of waiting until marriage. And at the end of the day, Christian or no Christian, people are going to make their own decisions on what purity means for them, if they should wait until marriage or not. And that's whatever, honestly, no offense, but I'm not going to make a video about that. It's your choice. However, I do think that as a Black person, as a Black woman, sometimes when I hear purity talks, purity rhetoric, purity teachings in sermons, it's so interesting to me to think about the history of women who look like me, especially dark-skinned women who are so hypersexualized. And this idea of Black women and girls being sexual or having sexy body parts. And we see this even in the beauty industry. So that could honestly be its own video. So like I said, I have a blog post dedicated to it. It's just one of those things that I've noticed that I think is very particular to being a Black woman, is this idea that you are supposed to remain pure and act, but you could actually be perceived to be less pure automatically based on stereotypes that are put on you. And that dichotomy, that juxtaposition of that pure / impure thing is just something that I don't think a lot of white women or white female Christians have to ever think about or have to ever consider or wrestle with or understand. Or when they read that in history, they don't think of like themselves in those positions where they had no right to their body at all. Whereas I do, because that's literally something that my ancestors experienced. Obviously, all women have suffered from the hands of sexism and this idea that, you know, what happens to you sexually is where your whole worth and dignity are. That does not help any woman, no matter what she looks like. But again, the gendered racism that can be wrapped up in that purity ideal, is something within itself. Religious studies experts / academics not looking like you, and not having teachers in these fields who look like you when you seek it out. So this is something that is very particular to me as a person. I mean, number one is too, I guess, but perhaps it's more general than this one. And as someone who's really interested in the academia of religion, not just the Christian Bible and being a Christian, but also just really interested in Christian apologetics and studying the word as an academic, intellectually, not just within a church. There are a lot of ways in which I noticed that the people that are experts in a field typically just don't look like me. When I was growing up, falling in love with National Geographic and banned books of the Bible and secrets of the Bible and all these history and National Geographic channel stories and specials on the Bible, the professors and the people that they interviewed and everyone, even sometimes clergy members, were white men, women to a lesser extent, but just didn't seem like there was a lot of diversity and who the, critically acclaimed people in the biblical field and the theological studies field were. And that really interested me as someone who was coming to college and falling in love with the Bible and wanting to have serious scholarship with it. A lot of people in the field, a lot of my teachers, pretty much none of them, were of my own race. And I know that for some people that just does not matter, but representation does matter, especially when you are living in the lack of it. And I remember being in a class, my favorite professor, one of my absolute favorites, she asked to speak to me after class, and she said, hey, I don't want to make you uncomfortable, but I just want to let you know, please continue with religious studies. Please continue studying, however you do it, continue with it, because I just participated in faculty interviews and we only had one woman and no African Americans. And it was just this weird, bizarre moment where I felt simultaneously encouraged and also sad at the lack of diversity within, religious academia. And so it was one of those moments where it struck me like, wow, like this is just, of course there are people who look like me who are, doctorates in philosophy or religion and things like that, but just not as many or not as well known, I guess. And it was just this moment where I really had to come face to face with the fact that if I keep pursuing this field, I could be rare. And I don't know, there's something in that as a minority that, yes, you're proud, but you're also really, disheartened. And that was just an experience that will always stick with me. Moving on to number 3, white churches and Christians using race relations in the US as fodder for sermons, even though they haven't spoken to their congregations about it before. So this is one thing I've noticed from the Christian influencers and churches that I have followed on Instagram or that I've just seen on Instagram. There seems to be, diversity, Black Lives Matter, speaking out. Those things are trendy now. And with anything that's trendy, you have to think, is your heart in the right place when you're doing this? Are you just talking about this because you can? And even worse sometimes is the people who are utterly, completely radio silent. And that speaks volumes too. And so this is not me bashing anyone or naming names or getting upset, because personally, if you're donating and you're signing petitions and you're educating yourself, I don't need to know every single nook and cranny of what you're doing. The post to me is not the proof to me all the time. And so this is not an assumption, but it is something that I've noticed when when someone shares a post by a church or shares a post by an influencer, and I look at it and I think, this person's page had nothing to do with anyone who didn't look like them or any other experience before. Like, they were never, talking about, you know, human rights issues or social justice issues prior to this moment. And hey, staying woke or being woke, that term is used for a reason. You're literally waking up. Maybe all their other posts were just a dream, in the words of, Big Papa. But yeah, oh, sorry, the Notorious B.I.G. I literally called him. You just think about that, and you think about people, and you like, really, it really gets to you, like, are they for real right now, or is it just for the gram? Because I know Black Lives Matter. It seems like some people are just realizing it, but I've always known Black Lives Matter. And so it's really frustrating slash interesting slash pondering, I guess you could say, when people thrust up all of these things that they wouldn't normally talk about or wouldn't normally discuss at all. And it makes me wonder, like, how are you talking to your friends now, your family now, that seem to disagree with you or seem to wonder where all your wokeness is coming from, and so that's what I really think. And so again, I'm not here to claim whose activism is real or not. I am not the god of that. Everyone has to know their own heart. But like I say, being sure of yourself or not does not stop you from donating, sharing, petitioning, signing, etc. So all of that should still be done, if you really feel the way that you feel, whether you posted about it or not. But it is something that I think is worth noting, is that in some churches, race relations are not a topic that they would ever discuss prior to the events of what happened tragically to George Floyd and Breonna Taylor, Elijah McClain, others who are coming out into the light right now, Ahmaud Arbery. And these cases are so tragic and so awful. And people are speaking out, and that's amazing. But you have to think, at least I think sometimes, I really wish some people spoke out sooner, especially the church. The church sometimes treats social justice and activism as if it's a left right issue, and it shouldn't be. There's no one who cared about the oppressed more than Jesus. And so, no matter how you're going to vote, there is right and wrong. And you can't be afraid to acknowledge that, understand that, and put your money where your mouth is, and do what you can to acknowledge the right choice in a situation. I mean, Black Lives Matter should not be divisive to you. It should not be something you have to argue about. And there have been chances. Like I said, I was protesting during the Mike Brown, Eric Garner years before the cases that we have now, or that are coming to light now, were being discussed. And so it strikes me, I suppose, the heated activism, the worldwide, nationwide activism that we see currently. And it just makes me pause sometimes when I read people's posts and stories and think, wow, you could have done this before, but okay. Got it. Guys, there you have it. 4 topics, thoughts that I think about as a Black Christian woman in the United States. If you've ever thought about these things, or I mentioned something that you're really interested in and you want to ask more about or comment about, I'm totally open to that in the comments. Just please, please be respectful. We are living in a tumultuous, if not trying and challenging year. And so I just urge everyone, no matter where you're coming from, to be kind. Again, these are my personal points of views. I'm only talking for myself. And so if you have anything to add, I would love to hear from you, as long as you say it with kindness. Thank you so much for watching. I truly, truly do appreciate it. Go in peace.